United Kingdom is where tailoring started, and Leeds, UK today has the best cloth finishing, the best production, and the best tailoring in the world. We're in Leeds, UK for this episode of the Suitmaker. Leeds has a very temperate climate, which is incredibly important for the production of wool. When it's hot and dry, the finishing of wool leads to an undesirable effect, and because of the certain processes used in the finishing of cloth, you don't want to air condition the facilities. That's one of the reasons why Leeds, UK to this day continues to be a high-level production place for some of the best wool in the world. We are at the LGFG Fashion House, main production facility in Leeds, United Kingdom. We're gonna go inside and see how our suits are made from the bottom up with all the tools and machines in between. Come and join me. Edward is in charge of all the production here at the shop. Everything that goes out from the shop and everything that goes into the shop goes through Edward. Edward is a second-generation tailor, and he was the first person ever to create an AutoCAD system for suits, meaning that he can design and save a suit pattern in a computerized format, which therefore allows us to reproduce an infinite amount of suits at exactly the same sizing, which is almost incomprehensible 30 years ago.
We have over 700 fabrics in stock in our warehouse, and we also have access to 25,000 cut lengths from the trade from companies like Dormay, Loro Piana. This will hardly sell in the UK. This will sell.
I mean, it's too out there. It's not conservative.
It's too out there for the UK, but they sell. You know, we sell miles of it into the US, for instance.
So different markets actually have very noticeable trends about the kind of patterns and
absolutely
boldness of the patterns they'll buy. So what's the most? Is the US the most bold market for?
Yeah, I would say the US is the most bold, and the Far East.
Ah, okay. So like we're getting into Asian and you're getting into more bold patterns.
Yeah.
Is it a wealth thing? Why is that?
No, I think it's a culture for colours. You know, people have different colours, and also it's how the wealth's been created. I think if you go into like the City of London, everyone's wearing a dark blue suit or a dark grey suit.
Well, it's bankers, right?
But if you go into the parts of London that are big into the PR and marketing, they'll be in the brighter stuff, the more showy stuff. So it's very much how people feel their uniform fits in their working environment.
You know, having been in the tailoring business for 30, 40 years and moving millions of dollars worth of cloth, what are some trends you've noticed in the last, let's say, 10 years? How have things changed in terms of the design of suits, in terms of what clients want, or even fabric?
The fabrics and what people wear, from my experience, tend to change with the mood of the economy. So when people are feeling really confident, they tend to wear stuff that's a bit more brash, a bit brighter. We went through a period after the 2007 crash where everybody was wearing really somber clothes and dressing up and not wanting to stand out in a crowd. And then confidence came back into the market and people started wearing like bright blues, like that sort of a colour, which they would have never worn in 2008.
Paul Johnson is the CEO of W.T. Johnson & Sons, a fourth-generation family business finishing cloth right here in Leeds, UK. The facility is situated upon a 1,500-foot borehole, which W.T. Johnson & Sons built themselves in order to extract pH-neutral water to help cloth reach its fullest potential.
Finishing is the bit between weaving and garment making, and we have been finishing fabric here in Huddersfield since 1910. Huddersfield's a fantastic place to finish fabric for a couple of reasons. First of all, we've got this cool temperate climate, which is what you need. What you really don't want to be doing is finishing fabric when it's hot and dry. And because of the way that fabric is finished and the amount of steam that we have in the shop floor there, you can't condition a finishing shed, so you can't have it air conditioned, so you need to rely on the general climate. The other great thing about where we are situated here, of course, is that we have this fantastic natural water supply. One of the most important processes in wool finishing is washing, and it's so important that the better that you can wash the wool, the better the quality is going to be at the end of the day. The most important fact in that is the quality of the water. We're situated above a natural water supply, and we have drilled down into it, and we have a borehole. It's actually the deepest borehole that there is in the county. It's about 1,500 feet deep.
Wow.
So this is the best way to clean high quality suiting fabric. The way to get the best drape in a fabric through washing is to do it really, really slowly, and to do it with wooden rollers in soap, and do it gently and give it that love and attention. It sounds a little bit corny when you say it out loud, but those are the facts. A shortcut would be you can get it clean in half the time. It'll save you money, but it will not, believe me, handle exactly the same.
So really, we're both in a similar business as we're trying to achieve our full potential with the product that we're putting out to the world.
Absolutely. Why would you want to do anything else? When you're in a luxury market, which we are, when you are talking to discerning customers, which we are, these little things, these little differences, these quality things matter. The recipe that people use to do the actual cleaning, in other words, what the cloth is running round in, is one of these highly guarded finishing secrets. Everybody's recipe will be slightly different. Now, the easy way to do it is to use detergent. But if you use detergent, it doesn't give it the same lubrication as using natural soap. Natural soap is absolutely the best way to do it, but it's hard to handle and it's difficult to get out of the fabric once you've got it in.
Often a good tailor will tell his customer what he's having. Sometimes if you leave a customer, lead him to choose everything, it can get a little bit chaotic. I'm not saying that some of them do go into tailor shops and say, you know, I've got these really specific ideas, I really want to look like this, but most customers want to be led. So, you know, you've got to try and judge the guy's character, and so there's a lot of psychology in the fitting of a garment and the tailoring of a garment to suit the customer. You know, I always say that, you know, you're not fitting the body, you're fitting the head.
Dorme is a 6th generation family business designing and manufacturing some of the best cloth in the world. And Joanne is on the design team of Dorme, and her responsibility are to help design the cloth that are going to hit the market 2 years from now. Decisions that are made in this room impact how people dress all over the world. Where does it start?
2 years before the bunch is launched, we receive the ideas from Paris, from head office. We get the ideas here, and then we start with the yarn strings, and then we start to put the colour combinations together.
And so the goal is to select a fabric or some group of fabrics from this weave in order to then introduce that into the season.
So then they're put together as colour blankets. So the colour blankets, once they're woven at the pattern weaver, the colour blankets go back to head office, and the stylist there will select the patterns that will make the bunch.
One of the key components of bespoke suit manufacturing is that there's a lot of hand workmanship that goes into them, and these are processes that cannot be shortcut. From chest pieces to shoulder pads, the most minute details such as the composition of the thread make a difference in the final product, and we're going to take a look into what those differences can be. Is there a difference in quality levels of shoulder pads? Like a cheaper suit manufacturer versus a quality luxury brand for a shoulder pad?
One of the things in shoulder pads is this outer wadding layer. If it's cheap, and this one isn't, so I'm going to struggle to do it, but if I'm going to try and really pull some fibres off it. So I've managed to pull some fibres off this. You can't really see them, but if it's a cheap one, what happens is that the top layer migrates, and on the lighter weight fabrics, you suddenly find you're picking fibres out of your suit. Now, you know, we always, as best as possible, use sustainable fibres. Sustainable fibres are ones that are grown, so cotton, wool, viscose, which is either made from bamboo or cellulose products, so trees. The beauty about natural fibres is they all breathe. So your suit, you know, breathes with you. If you're using man-made fibres, they don't breathe, unless they're really high-performance ones, but that's not in tailoring.
So it's a cost argument. So a cheaper manufacturer would use a man-made fiber because they're saving money.
Absolutely, yeah. That's right. These are, as you can see, our pads are all stitched together. Often the cheap pad is just all glued together. So it's literally, there's no stitching in it at all. There's just layers of glue, and it's all stamped up.
So this is a truth. This is a really important thing in tailoring because nobody talks about it. You can have a shoulder pad that's glued together, or one that's using nylon oil-based thread versus one that's stitched together with natural fibers, and you're getting a different performance from the shoulder pad.
What tailoring's all about is that everything you start with is a flat material. Like the top of a table. and you're trying to make a three-dimensional shape out of it. So some of the three-dimensional shape can be put in by pressing, but most of it's put in by sewing. So when you put this together, you put it together on a shaped buck, and the stitches go through, and then they form the shape. And you can see that that is already wanting to be the shape of a shoulder.
So material of the shoulder pad,
Yep.
threads of the shoulder pad, construction of the shoulder pad, pressing of the shoulder pad, but even more importantly, the ply and the stitching of the shoulder pad.
Yeah, because when you insert them, again, the cheaper pads have glue on them, in effect, sticky glue, so that when you insert it, you just apply steam and it sticks to the garment, in effect. You often see it on a guy where you look at his back and there's a sort of lump, and what's happened is that the back of the shoulder pad's turned under, usually by the dry cleaners, but it's because they've applied this heat, it's melted the glue, the thing's bent over, they've then pressed it again, and that's what you end up with.
So even from the very beginning, when the cloth is being, after the cloth's been woven and it's being processed to go into the garments, you own that entire process. You have your own boring hole, you extract the water, and you control the entire process, even the chemistry of that process, all the way through to the end.
Yeah, the things that finishing can do are really, really important to the fabric, because we can affect the performance characteristics of the fabric. Very high sheen. We call it colloquially a shining tower. But actually what it's doing is really putting a metallic type gloss onto fabric.
Is that a signature of some brands that they want a different kind of, like, as I know, the Dormé has a certain sheen to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of customers out there, there's a lot of brands out there where high levels of press is what they consider to be an optimum finish for them. Certain parts of the world actually go for that type of look too, and it's created on a machine like that. That one there is almost the exact opposite. That machine is what we call an emerizer. And what we're doing there is we are sandpapering with very fine paper the surface of the fabric to make it peach skin-like and dull. So almost the polar opposite. As our machinery has evolved, as our people have become more and more skilled, the range of effects on both performance and handle that we can achieve on fabric makes a significant difference to the way that a fabric can be perceived.
How much has the processing of cloth evolved over the last generation?
In finishing, enormously. In the old days, finishing could have been regarded as quite superficial. It was stabilised and it was cleaned. But much of the press, much of the shine and drape that went on, when you made a garment up and steamed it and all the rest of it in processing, disappeared. So you're just left with the fabric as it was woven.
The luster was not lustrous.
Correct. This is a very, very early cropping machine. Now, originally, all this used to be done by hand with shears. And it is this piece of equipment here that was responsible in the United Kingdom for the Luddite Revolution, which was a revolution whereby all the people who were cropping fabric like that thought machines like this were going to take their jobs away, and they came and smashed them all up. These days, of course, we have much quicker, much more sophisticated machines doing a very similar job. Swiss-made, precision pieces of equipment running at 20 metres a minute instead of 3 metres a minute, precisely setting the blade at exactly the right height automatically. You know, very, very sophisticated. But the principle of shearing the fibre off the surface is still exactly the same.
This is what we call a full canvas garment. Now, there is no stabling on this, there's no fusing on this, so all the structure of the garment is created by the canvas, and it's really important how the canvas is put together. You can see
4 layers and the cloth, yeah.
Yeah, but it's canvas has a memory. I don't know how I can show you memory, but if I was to have sewn that a bit too tight like that, now I can press it out, but its memory will go back to that. And so you put a suit on which has got a badly made canvas and it just wrinkles down the front. You can press it out, looks fine for half an hour, wrinkles down the front again. So when you're making these hand canvases, it's really, really critical that as they build the layers up, because as you say, in this particular canvas, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. They all get put together, one layer above another, and held together by a plonker base to stitch. One of the processes that's, you can see there is a pencil line, and that's used to tell us what the crease row is. But when they put this tape on, you pull it in a little bit here, because you need to give it some shape to go over the chest.
Much like hand workmanship, the machinery that is being implemented in the manufacture of garments is incredibly important. They require a lot of expertise by trained professionals. The best machinery is made in Germany and Switzerland. It uses Swiss needles, and we're going to look at some of the high-level machinery we use in our shop.
Okay, what we're doing here is that our traditional cutter has cut a pair of pants, and we are now creating taking a pattern off it so that we can digitize the pattern and put it into our CAD system, and then it's available to be manipulated using grade rules so that we can fit all the sizes that are required in this particular block. So that's what's happening here. So this is a waistcoat. It's the back of a waistcoat, the lining. You can see on here, if you come up close, that all the patterns have notches on them. These notch marks are so that you know how to sew seam together and seam together. And what's really important on things like a shoulder seam is that you're gathering the cloth between 2 points. So the notches at the end have to match. When they start, the hind arm notch will be a centimetre further apart than the full-part notch. Precision cutting.
How many individual tailoring processes in a suit?
I think that's a trick question. It depends how many like how many layers of canvas is going in there, how much basting is going into the garment, how many. There are so many different make methods. Even the collars, the sleeve head rolls.
So on a cheaper suit, there's 70 or 80 places that the manufacturer, let's say, could save on cost.
Yes.
Not only on material, but also on make.
You can shortcut lots of operations one of the things that we do is just the outbreast welt here is stitched together with a zigzag. So it's in effect got an almost invisible seam here. So I've just added in a process. So that's an operator and a machine.
But that machine costs a lot of money, just for that one stitch on the pocket seam.
Exactly. That's the sort of detail that you're paying for. You do this in the hope that you're creating something that's worthy of the investment. So this is a Strobel padding machine. It does the stitch that allows the canvas to be attached to the cloth without going through. The needle is actually hooked. It's a bent needle, and that goes literally halfway through the cloth. So you can see how fine that action is. Picks up the thread, pulls it through, makes the loop, next thread. This machine here, this is for sleeving in the garment. This is for the same shape as the sleeve head. As you go sewing the sleeve through the garment, you need to put fullness in different areas. So that it has a variable pedal and a foot that gathers the cloth at the bottom. This is a jet machine, very specific for doing the pocket jets. So in effect, it's a twin needle machine. You can see underneath there are 2 needles, left and right. That has a folder, and you press the thing going, and it feeds the cloth in, and it puts both those jets in at the same time.
Truth of finishing these days is that you need the most up-to-date or the most relevant machinery. It doesn't have to be up-to-date, it has to be relevant, it has to be fit for purpose. You need to have that machinery or else there's stuff you can't do.
This is cleaning, but there's no rollers that it's going through. No nip, no squeeze, conveyor belts running very quickly, throwing the fabric against the backboard. And we can now give a broken up effect to cottons and linens that previously we couldn't because we hadn't got this cleaning system. And the way that this does the work means that we can now do those fabrics. So this is a great example of having a machine to give you a capability. It's not about saving money, it's not about doing it quicker, it's about giving you a capability that we hadn't got a number of years ago.
But you also need to have people who understand how to get the best out of the machinery. So if we look at some of the competition, you're asking about competitors. So they're able to buy some sophisticated machinery, but they haven't got 4 generations of knowledge to know how to use it as well as they could do. In other areas, we've got people who've got some knowledge, but they're underinvested because they haven't invested in the plant and machinery that they need. The machines have become more and more sophisticated. They've been able to impart more and more clever performance features to cloth, more and more handle features, but also you need to know how to use them.
So the top brands like Dormé, they're going to get their wool from Australia, New Zealand, places that are today renowned for having the best raw material in the world. How important is the raw material? How important is the input to get the output you desire?
Very. To answer your question about bringing the best out of it, there is absolutely no point spending all that money to have the best fibres in the world in your fabric if the supply chain can't get the best out of them. And that's quite a responsibility which we take very seriously.
One of the challenges of any industry when you're building or are part of an established, credible brand is that people are going to copy you and they're going to take shortcuts in order to try to compete on price. And that's typical across every industry. So how would one make a shortcut to do what you do, and how would that impact the final product?
If we go back to making a cloth reach its full potential, if you don't give it your full attention, if you don't give it every process that it needs in order to do that, it won't reach its full potential. How can you tell it hasn't reached its full potential? Because you can feel it, you can see it, and it's brought out in the performance. And actually, that is where we are. We are interested in stuff being as good as it can be and making it exactly as the fabric designer wanted it. One of our main tenets is we try and do things that other people can't do. So we're using our skills and our machinery to give effects, to give drapes, to give handles that other people can't do. So a great example of that would be this is the machine that is what I call high maintenance, difficult to run, but provides significant value to fabric because of the way that it treats it. Now, the reason that autoclave is so big is because the fabric is always moving inside it. And it has to be that big in order to have the dwell time of the fabric inside the oven for. The consistency is on a different level. End to end, piece to piece, side to side, day after day, the treatment is exactly the same.
And how many of these are there in the world?
And it's permanent. 2.
And you guys have both of them right here.
Correct.
It's incredible.
When we have fabric washed, we then need to dry it. So there's 2 things going on here. One is we are drying it, but the other is we are controlling the dimensions of the fabric so that when we do subsequent finishing processes, it ends up at the right width and the right alignment ready for tailors to make suits out of it. This machine is in 3 parts. This bit here is mechanical water removal. So we are sucking water out of the fabric because sucking water out is cheaper than burning gas. This little unit here is what we call wet straightening. When we've washed fabric in that rope form and we pull it out, the weft line can be all the way across. So we need to try and straighten the weft line, and that's done here with a series of magic eyes and bowed rollers. And then in this big chamber here, we have fabric on the tenter pins held, going backwards and forwards in gas-fired chambers to get it dry.
I think that piece is my suit right there.
£500,000 from one end to the other.
Dormé is an absolute legend of a name in the garments industry. Dormé was started 6 generations ago. It's still owned by the original family. It is in fact so legendary that if you've seen 1 or 2 Hollywood films, you've seen Dormé cloth. So even after all of those processes and all of the controls and all the examinations, when you receive it back here, you examine it again.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
That's what we do. I mean, we've been doing it since 1842, when Jules Dormé came over to the UK from Paris at the tender age of 22 years old. He had the vision to come over to London, buy English cloth, and then take it back to the couture houses in Paris. We've been doing the same ever since, and now we actually manufacture 86% of our collection is made in the UK.
Now, I'm a big fan of Dormé, and one of the things I noticed in some of my previous travels is just how big Dormé is in Japan. Where's that relationship founded on? Where is it coming from?
We were the first cloth merchants to go into Japan, and it's a very honorific culture over there. So you will find that father and son will pass on the relationships. And as a family-run business, and still owned by the original family, we're now in the 6th generation. It's very important that those bonds are strong and they are maintained.
What's interesting is when we went to Johnson & Sons, and you saw it was a fourth generation family business, and then we were in our main manufacturing shop in Leeds, and that's also a family passed down business, and this is a family business.
Yeah.
Is that always implicit to the manufacture of garments and the trade, or?
It's implicit, yeah. It's also if you want to have longevity. We're more about the sustainability of everything these days, and that you need to have a family business so that those values are passed on.
What kind of man wears Dormé?
Someone with style and panache, someone who values quality over a huge quantity. We produce probably the most exclusive cloths in the world, and we're now looking at how to make sure that that's also globally sustainable.
So I'm going to give you a quick list of yes or no questions. You have to say yes or no.
Fire away, sir.
You're the global director of Dormé for the UK. Have you dealt with any, it doesn't necessarily have to be English, but have you dealt with any royal family members?
We have, yes. Yeah.
Have you dealt with professional athletes?
Yes.
Professional musicians?
Yes.
Movie stars?
Yes.
Who haven't you dealt with?
We tend to deal with the top, the creme de la creme.
I remember you were telling us a story where you had a very, very prestigious and exclusive client, somewhere in the upper echelons of all society, who maintained a wardrobe of suits at home, but also had the same wardrobe on his yacht.
Correct.
And then he wanted to have that on his yacht, but he wanted the cloth to be immune to salt water.
Yeah.
So you had it commissioned to make the same cloth and then test it and
Individual testings, yes. Obviously, once you get to a certain level, then we will always go to the extra mile for our clients.
Have you